Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, and this is Ben and Barry on football.
And I am your co-host. My name is Ben Dickerson. I'm a fantasy geek and lover of everything football.
Ladies and germs, you will notice that you only see one of us at a time. We're doing a remote today, and so you'll have a chance to see each one of us individually, just like we had a cameraman or something to that effect. You know what I mean? Right, Ben? Like,
We're doing a remote.
doing the remote.
that's good
All
enough.
right. So what are we going to do today? We're going to take a look at week 11, right? We got week 12 coming up. So we're going to look back at week 11, take a look at the games on a quick basis. We are going to kick it off, however, with the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, looking at the four most important categories as far as we're concerned. And then we're going to look at the Bias Plus Report, also known as
The matchup show.
the matchup show, where we'll be looking at this upcoming weekend's games. And then we'll finish that off with some commentary / rants and a review of our social media. So, Ben, let's get ready to start it off. Before we go into anything specific, which the next thing will be the top 10, any comments, concerns, questions? You want to kick off first?
What I will say is I apologized, and I will apologize again for my pick segment of the show where I was trying to pick the winners and going with or against the bias. I did awful. It was embarrassing, and I'm still embarrassed. However, I did redeem myself, which you'll find out later as we talk about last week's games.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm not sure exactly if you're talking about the week before that was terrible for everybody versus last week.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, that's what I kind of thought. I know you had a rebound. All you had to do was stick with us, and you'd had a rebound. We had a rebound big time last week. Posted in somewhere a little above 85% in the win-loss column, even though we always say the main thing that we like is that the trends that the Sterling Net Point ranking shows, and usually what you'll find in your top third of the rankings are your playoff teams. So here we go. All right, Benny, let's start out by taking a look at the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings top 10 with one of our favorites of all, Tide. We all love Tide. Can you see Tide okay?
Yes, I can.
Great, fantastic. And we are doing the top 10 because, like I said, generally these are your playoff teams, and you're going to see some shuffling and things of that nature. And, as we move toward, but you know who your leaders are. So in the turnover differential, which means that the difference between your giveaways and your takeaways, or your takeaways and your giveaways, same thing. Looking at number 10 in the top 10, and I got to give these guys some love, man. They're in my division, my beloved Niners, the Cardinals, man. Young Kyler Murray is not turning the ball over.
That's a big plus for a young guy who was questioned at every turn as to whether he deserved to be the number one pick overall. They brought up his height and all kinds of stuff, but the bottom line is, in my eyes, he's a bona fide NFL receiver, NFL quarterback, and he's still got more to show us. And in the years to come, I'm sure this whole thing will bear itself out. Obviously, their team is going to have to improve overall, but the kid proved that he can play. And the fact that he's taking care of the ball means that even though their defense isn't that great, whatever turnovers that they're able to get is coming up on the plus for them as a +4 because he's able to protect the ball. So
absolutely,
those two things work hand in hand.
I'm so glad you mentioned plus because as with the net points, turnover differential, these are the two of our four categories for which there is both a range of minus and plus in those categories. Because again, if you're giving it away more than you're taking it away, you will have a minus in front of your number. We have a three-way tie for 9, 8, and 7 with the Titans, the 49ers, and the Chiefs tied at 5. And for some reason, I think all three of these teams are kind of tenuous in the turnover category. They're they're in the plus right now, but I don't know. I don't trust the turnovers for even my Niners here being in the +5. What do you think about the Chiefs turning the ball over, the Titans turning the ball over, or taking it away?
Well, again, I would have to look back a little bit to see if these teams have basically been in the plus for most of the season. I venture to guess that they have. So if the defense is still doing its thing, getting takeaways, then you may have seen these teams turn the ball over offensively, and it still hasn't hurt them to the point where they've left the plus category.
Well,
that makes sense?
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yes, we're still in the plus, all three of us. 6 and 5, Seahawks and Ravens tied. That's an interesting combo right there. Young man in his second year, Mr. Lamar Jackson, tearing the league up. Both potential MVP at quarterback, +6 in the turnover differential. So that's a good number.
Yes.
All right. For the Saints, that means that while Drew Brees was out, Teddy did a good job, keeping the turnovers down, very efficient with the ball. Drew Brees came back, actually looked a little, I'm not sure, looked almost like he took a step.
Shaky's a good word in that first game back.
Yeah, shaky's a good word. But they're still +8. Their defense is in the upper echelons. 3 Steelers, and I'm still throwing the skew at the Steelers for 5 in one game, and then 4 in the next 10 games out of 11.
Did they only have 4 in the next 10 games? Seems like more than that.
They had 5 against the Niners.
That's correct.
They had 5. Now, again, this is turnover differential. Don't know if my Niners got any from him, from the Steelers.
Okay, I'm pretty sure the Steelers were still turning the ball over at a pretty good rate per game. It's just that they began to give a few away once the quarterback situation got a little murky.
Oh, yeah, Mr.
Right? So the numbers are going to even out.
What's the back's name that came from Miami?
Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake.
D-back to the Steelers from Miami.
Oh, I'm sorry. Minka Fitzpatrick.
Exactly.
So that they have still been doing their thing defensively. It's just that the offense has given a few away. Rudolph has tossed up a few with his eyes closed there. But luckily for them, the defense was continuing to do their thing. We'll talk about that game against the Browns later, but that wasn't one of their shining moments.
One of the scariest things about the Patriots, you can talk about their offense. We'll talk about that. You can talk about their defense. You can talk about that. Not many people are talking about that. That's the strongest turnover differential in the league.
By far. Only double digits.
Yeah, the only double digits, twice the number of number 2 and or number 3 who were tied. Patriots getting it done in the turnover arena.
Well, we're talking about Tom Brady handling the ball on every snap on offense. Very efficient, as always. We're talking about backs that just do not fumble. Okay, so that's basically it. On top of the fact that their defense, especially their secondary, is pretty top-notch this year. Now, they have been prone to give up yards on the ground lately, but that's another story. Right now, their defense is still a threat to get interceptions, scoop up fumbles, sacks, whatever.
All righty, that's Todd. Again, Todd's one of our favorites in the category because again, it's it means points. It means points. Next up, DPG, defensive points per game. You can't help again but go to the top right there because it's so closely tied to that turnover differential. I mean, if they keep taking the ball away from you, you're not going to score with it.
Exactly.
So they're number one. Number two, my beloved Niners in at 15.5. That defense getting it done. The Bills coming in third at 17. Bears right below them at 17.4. Then you've got your Vikings at 18. Your Ravens, Cowboys, Broncos. I'm so surprised they're in there. Titans and Rams all in the 19 plus number, going from 6 through 10. What do you think about these defenses?
Well, the Patriots defense is bona fide. They're going to hold you down. You're not going to score a lot against them. Every once in a while they get in a shootout, but nothing like last year's Super Bowl. You won't see that against this particular defense. Niners, kind of the same deal. They will battle back and forth. The Seahawks game was pretty high scoring, but other than that, you're not going to see teams score a lot of points on them, win or lose. Same thing with the Bills. Win or lose, the games are going to be tight. They proved that against the Patriots. I think that game was like 16-10 or something. The poor Chicago Bears, their defense could probably be even better than it is if they didn't have so many struggles on offense and put their defense in bad positions. Vikings kind of had the same thing going on early in the season, but the offenses seemed to balance itself out. And the Ravens was kind of in the reverse. The offense was already kind of doing their thing. The defense was giving up some points. They had the one really bad game where they got scored on a lot. Other than that, they've been pretty efficient. Cowboys are pretty balanced offensively and defensively. They've been efficient. The Broncos, for as many problems as they've had on offense, are still somehow keeping scores down. The Titans have always been that way. The Rams should be better, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, there's your top 10 right there. That's the way I see it.
Absolutely. Top 10 defensive points per game. We don't make these numbers up. We just share them with everybody.
Right.
Because, man, I mean, that's good to know, you know. And when we talk about in the segment after the next segment, once we go to the Bias Plus report, you'll start to see how we utilize these numbers in the matchups that are coming up. Let's move on to the next one. Offense. They say offense sells tickets. Defense wins championships. Everybody wants to see the Ravens right now.
Yeah, they should be selling plenty of tickets.
You know, it's almost, you know, and you know, it's funny, but I didn't think about this because me and you as football fans, you know, big time football fans, probably would want to make a trip to try to get the chance to see this guy in action so that we can tell our grandkids. I saw him. It's like Michael Vick, you know. Did you ever see Michael Vick live?
No.
Me neither. I missed him, you know. Like when he came here, you know, me being a Niner fan, I go to an Eagle game when the Niners are here. And the rest of the time, you know, I'm looking at the TV for my Niners. But I would like to see, and you know, Baltimore's not that far away. You know?
It's true.
Not that far away, man. Anyway, offensive, now, some changes. Patriots had been in the lead in terms of offense, in terms of gross number of points, but because of the buys, we went with averages. So this is points per game and the Ravens rule. at 31.1 points per game. My beloved Niners, believe it or not, are right there in second place at 29.5. The Patriots come in third at 28.7, right there next to the Cowboys at 28.6. Wait till we talk about that matchup. Right there. I mean, you're talking about two kindred spirits relative to scoring. The Chiefs, the what we consider the scoring machine, are right there in fifth place. Let me stop there for a minute and give you a chance to talk about the top five.
Wow. Well, you expect the Chiefs to be in the top five, but not at number five.
Yeah.
But there they are. They've had their issues. They had to go a couple of games without Patrick Mahomes, but I believe they did pretty well with Matt Moore at the helm. It wasn't terrible. The Cowboys at 28.6 per game, I think that's actually pretty impressive. A lot of it is due to Dak, and we're going to talk about Dak at some point and his contract issues somewhere along the line, because every time he kind of stumbles, people go, oh, he's not worth it. And every time he shines, people go, wow, he's going to get paid. Patriots are the Patriots. But I tell you the truth, Tom Brady's been having some problems. They're not putting points up on the board as the schedule gets a little bit tougher. The big numbers are not there. They could be on the decline. I'll be interested to see where they are next week, having dropped from first to third already in 1 week. 49ers, I expect you guys to stay up there, 29.5. Again, very impressive. It's almost 30 points per game. Now, true, you had a couple normal games and then you had a couple high-scoring games, but regardless, 29.5 per game is very impressive. And the Ravens, oh boy, I don't know what to say. The only thing that scares me about the Ravens offense is their passing game. And people are going to immediately go, oh no, Lamar's throwing the ball well. Well, yeah, he is, to a bunch of tight ends. So the only scary thing about that Ravens offense is they need to get their wide receiver core kind of together. You know, Hollywood Brown's got to get healthy before the playoffs start. That's a must. That's a must.
Man, interesting that you mentioned that. I just happened to pull a stat out for you.
Okay.
Ravens passing yards per game ranked 20th.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, you can say, okay, well, that's the way their offense is. It's ground-based, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. As far as I'm concerned, you know, people always say defense wins championships, but I always remind folks, teams that win championships usually have a really good defense and a good running game. Okay? Teams that throw the ball a lot seldom win Super Bowls. To tell you the truth, it seldom happens.
Teams that what? Say that one more time.
Teams that win championships have a really good to great defense and a running game, a real running game. And they've got that.
Yes.
So they don't have to have Sterling, got you again, numbers for in the passing game. Okay. I mean, let's face it, these guys won a Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer. So, you know, he doesn't have to be a great passer. The thing is, he can throw the ball. Right now, he's throwing the ball when he needs to and when he wants to, and not because he has to. And that's all pluses for the Ravens.
Let me say this. This is a Madden moment. You can see behind me, I did play my franchise season game against the Green Bay Packers. I'll hold the outcome till later when we talk about the matchup in the Bias Plus report. But what I wanted to mention was that last week I was modeling the Ravens. I forget who they were playing, and so I started to play with the Ravens. Only when I'm playing with a different team, because I normally play with the Niners, I use my Niner playbook because I'm familiar with that.
Right.
But because the Ravens were always talking about this offense that you've never seen before, right? And then I heard recently that the Ravens had more pistol formations than any other team in the league. I was like, well, let me try the Ravens offense. So I'm playing with my Niners, utilizing the Ravens playbook. I like it. I like it.
I like it.
I like it. And one last thing I'll mention, one of the reasons why I thought that I could run this with Garoppolo is not because he's going to do any running. But I remembered that when Peyton Manning was with the Broncos, they were putting him in the pistol.
Yes,
Run, but it was like a quicker 3-step drop situation.
Yes.
He's already 3 steps back.
Right.
So he's seeing it, he's tossing it, he's moving that ball quickly. And there are some good, the running options. You got all types of running options. And that's kind of an area of similarity between the Niners and the Ravens. We've thrown a lot to our tight ends too. We're kind of more of a running team, than anything else. And so I liked it. We'll talk about my results, however, later. All right.
Okay.
So where were we at here? We were looking at, let me bring this back up for everybody to see on the points per game here. All righty. So Chiefs, so your bottom 6. So again, here's your boy Jameis, number 6 in points per game, putting up the points.
Yes.
Just a tad ahead of Russell Wilson, much less.
Yes. And I'm sorry. Once again, the only people who are really happy about Jameis Winston and what he's doing this year are fantasy football players that have him as a quarterback in leagues where they don't charge points against you for interceptions. So there's a select group of us out there who are playing fantasy in leagues that don't give minus points for fumbles and interceptions, who are loving Jameis Winston right now because he's almost guaranteed. In fact, he's guaranteed to get you points at the quarterback position in fantasy. Doesn't matter if he wins or loses the game, as long as he puts up the numbers, and he is ringing up numbers.
Well, he's ahead of Russell Wilson. He's ahead of Kirk Cousins.
Yep.
He's ahead of Aaron Rodgers
and
Deshaun Watson.
Ain't that something? Now, obviously, we're just talking about points because all those guys are far more efficient passers than he is. So,
Are they more efficient passers? They just got better defenses. Efficient in terms of not turning the ball over.
They are all far more efficient passers than this guy.
And by efficient, you mean?
Efficient meaning getting results and still protecting the ball.
Okay, and still protecting the ball. Absolutely.
Yes. You got to do both. He only does one.
And what are those leagues called again? The ones that don't
they just are what they are. You can, in fantasy, you can make your rules pretty much anything you want. Most leagues, matter of fact, I don't play in any leagues that give minus points. I think that's goofy. I think everybody should be on a level playing field. If you do something good, you should get rewarded for it. And if you don't do something good, then you don't get rewarded for it. But if you do something bad, let's just erase everybody's bad and just keep it nice, That's the way I look at it.
Well, it kind of offends my yin yang philosophy, but that's okay. We'll leave it at that right now. Let's move on to the king of all of the stats, net points. All right, we're going to go to the bottom here. Let's start with number 10, the Saints at plus 39 net points. When you hear people talk about the Saints, it's they're automatically putting them in the playoffs. They're automatically saying that this is a top team. That they're giving them all types of love, but they are 10 out of 32 in terms of net points.
That's true. That's true. I'm going to look real fast here. And in the defensive points per game category, they were 4th. Okay.
There you go.
And in the offensive points category, they were 13th. So they're pretty outstanding at defensively controlling the teams that they're playing and keeping the scores down. But and I'm not blaming Teddy Bridgewater for this, but I think they kind of tapered their game plans for Teddy to keep things real simple, which is going to take the blowout games kind of out of it. I mean, they won every game that he started, but I don't think they blew anybody out. I think they were just efficient, kept it close to the vest, ran the ball, safe passes. Nothing wrong with that. Remember, we're talking about points and, they're this and they're that, but these teams, they're just trying to win.
Now, let me pause you for 1 minute because I want to make sure of something.
Okay.
You said defensive points per game. The Saints were where?
Let me make sure I'm looking in the right spot. Oh, I'm sorry. That was turnovers. I was in the incorrect column. They are actually, oh my. I think this will answer our question.
They're 12.
Yeah, they're more like 12.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. Well.
But, this is interesting because they're 12th at 19, and they are 13th offensively at 23.8 points per game. So there's where you're getting your.
So we're looking at some relatively low scores, close games.
Right.
Teddy
was efficient.
Yes, and they won. So, again,
they had a couple losses, right? Who they lose to this year? Do you know?
Somebody they weren't supposed to. I think they lost to Atlanta, and somebody else they weren't supposed to lose to.
Atlanta, crazy. Okay, so Saints 10. We've got the 9, the Bills, Rams at 8, tied with the Packers at 7 for 45 plus 45 net points. Those are your 40 area net point grouping. Anything to say about those teams right now?
I don't think that the Rams are going to be hard pressed to stay up there. I really think they're starting to descend. I think that the Saints and the Seahawks we will see begin to ascend. I think they will either get right under, well, they are kind of right under the Chiefs and Packers, or go right above the Chiefs and Packers. There's going to be a lot of jockeying going on, man. We're going on week 12 here, okay? Teams are really jockeying for playoff positions. The teams that look strong and look like they're going to be division winners still have something to play for because they want home field advantage for as long as they can and get it throughout if they can. Teams that are in second and third place in their divisions but have strong records are looking to grab a wild card at best. So nobody can go to sleep. Nobody's safe. Nobody's safe. So like I said, I expect teams like the Saints and the Seahawks to begin to ascend. I think teams like the Rams will descend. I think teams like the Chiefs, and I've already kind of spoken of my disdain for them, will begin to descend. And they're going to be hard-pressed to hang on to win that division. And if they don't win that division, if they get a wild card and have to go on the road, now I'm getting too far ahead of myself talking about playoffs, but you kind of get the gist of what I'm saying, right?
Well,
in other words, don't be disappointed. If you're a Saints fan, don't be disappointed at their 39 net points and they're sitting at 10, because that's going to change.
You mentioned the Rams. You said descend for the Rams.
Yes, I believe the Rams will descend.
Let me run down the remaining schedule for the Rams real quick.
Okay.
All right, starting with this coming weekend, they play the Ravens. Now
That's
that
a
might
loss.
cause the beginning of the descent right
That's a
there.
loss.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. But then they have the Cardinals. That's a division game. That's where you get the weird factor.
That
Then
could
they
be a
have the
loss.
Seahawks. That's
That's a
another
loss.
division game, right? Then you got the Cowboys
That's
conference
another
game,
loss.
and the Cowboys are probably going to be fighting for a division title at about that time, depending on what the Eagles do.
Right now, at best, they're 1-3.
Then you got the Niners, week
Oh God.
16. Then they go back to the Cardinals. So they got 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the next 6 games in the division. Wow.
And guess what? I bet you $1 to a donut they split with the Cardinals. I bet you they win one and lose one.
I wouldn't doubt it. Again, the Cardinals are that's an amazing situation, and we've been watching it, and I got respect for them guys. I'm not.
It's strange, but they're hard to stop offensively. They give you all kind of fits. If they just had a little bit more efficient running game, and it's probably they need some improvements on the offensive line. But if their running game was a little bit more solid, they would be a real problem.
Well, the run game, when you're talking about the air raid, is secondary, obviously, to the pass, and that's just how it's set up.
Sure.
But they throw to the backs, and I think now that they have the running back from the Dolphins.
Yes, Kenyon Drake.
Kenyon Drake showed up big time against my Niners, kind of surprised us. I think they have a good backup, replacement, But long story short, they still have some ways to go. Moving up, net points. We talked about the Rams and the Packers at 45. Did you have anything to say about the Pack real quick?
The Packers? To me, the jury's still out on the Packers. They're too iffy. They're too up and down. The first couple of weeks of the season, everybody's saying that Aaron Rodgers and the new coach aren't on the same page. Then they get a couple of impressive wins, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, we see what's going on now. They got it clicking now." And then I don't know about the Packers.
But you were big on their defense.
Yeah, I was big on their defense until I realized that because they had the game flow going their way a couple of times, teams had to throw the ball against them, and their secondary is pretty good. But when things are even and they don't score early and teams get to running on them, oh boy. Woo.
Well, they are 14th in defensive points against. So they're behind the Steelers. They're just above the Colts. They're right in that range. That's the neighborhood, as we like to talk about. All right. Let's see here. I want to make sure that I'm actually in a share mode here. There we go. So everybody can see what we're talking about. There we go. So we talked about the Packers. Chiefs at 52 in 6th place. Okay, that's about right. Vikings at 5th. So now we're into our top 5. Vikings 84. Cowboys at 89. So that's the last of the 2-digit. Now we start to get into big boy territory. Before we get to the big boys, Cowboys, Vikings, Chiefs. Any comments?
I think the Cowboys and the Vikings are for real. I think the Chiefs are gonna. I think the wheels are a little wobbly. They haven't fallen off yet. Something about the Chiefs doesn't smell right to me. The Cowboys and the Vikings, either one of them could possibly catch somebody descending. But when you look at the Niners at 140 and then the Cowboys right under them at 89, Niners, Ravens, Patriots, it's going to be tough to overtake them in the net points. It's going to be tough. They Yeah, it's going to be hard to pass them with, 5 games left?
Yeah, at
I,
best.
I think they pretty much got the top 3 locked up in net points, unless they really have a couple stinkers.
Okay, well let's I want to share some that pretty kind of wraps things up. Let me share a couple things here. Where are we on the share? Number one, everything that we just went over, you can find at Sterling Net Point Power Rankings. If you go to www.sterlingnppr.com, that's where you will go. It is our public Facebook page. And here we have the total graph so that you can see in net points that you've got your positives and you've got your negative. I'm not going to go too far up on it right at this particular point, but you can go there and you can find that information in addition to all of our other things. We do this on a weekly basis. You'll find my blog there. But we're going to get ready to end this particular segment. Ben, relative to your top 4 categories: net points, offensive points per game, defensive points per game, and tied turnover differential. Any comments?
Once again, things are beginning to come into shape. In years past, things have been a little bit clearer at this point in the season, but the fact that they're not clear is actually a good thing to me. That means that competition is alive and well, and people are scrambling to win games and get into playoff position. So we're going to see the numbers fluctuate some more, and it's going to be hard to pick winners, real hard.
All right. Well, that wraps up the top 10. Next up, we're going to do the review of Week 11's games and see how our Bias Plus report held up last week. And we'll see how Ben, if he embarrassed himself last week. All right. So in this portion, we're going to talk about the Bias Plus report for Week 11. Last week, we're going to take a quick look at those games that we've already played, see how the bias held up, see how Ben's predictions and defections from the bias held up. So let's get ready to kick that right off, Mr. Ben, with the Thursday night game. And when I wrote about this game, it should be banging. But I had no idea. No idea. The Bias Plus score was 9.2, favored the Steelers because they had been playing pretty well with Mason. What happened?
Ay, 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 ay. Well, first of all, I did make another idiotic statement last week by saying usually if I do well in the Thursday night game, it bodes well for me for the rest of the weekend. I really got to stop making statements like that. I picked Pittsburgh. And again, I'm going to take a little bit more time with my picks. I think I've been a bit frivolous because I'm not really betting any real money. But in my mind, I was thinking Pittsburgh's defense is taking the ball away like crazy. Secondary's flying all over the place. And Baker Mayfield and that offense for the Browns has been turning the ball over like crazy. Chubb is fumbling. Mayfield's throwing the ball all over the place. It's crazy. This should be a Steelers win. I had no idea that it was going to turn out the way that it did. Mason Rudolph was pretty much crappy. He threw 4 picks. Threw 4 picks. Couldn't find his way in and out of the pocket to save his life. Got sacked 4 times. Threw for 200-something yards. It was awful. Not to mention James Conner gets hurt, so now they got basically no running game. And then 2 guys go out with concussions on helmet-to-helmet hits. It was a total disaster. It had nothing to do with me picking the game. I don't know if those things hadn't happened, if Pittsburgh would have won. I'm not even going to say that. It was just the wheels completely fell off for Pittsburgh. Completely. It was a mess. Baker Mayfield, on the other hand, wasn't much better. He only threw for 193 yards. He did throw for 2 touchdowns and run for 1, which was good. He did seem to show a little bit better command of the offense. I questioned some of the calls coming from Freddie Kitchens, but for the most part, Baker didn't turn the ball over. But some of his passes were very errant. I don't know. Jury's still out on Baker Mayfield.
You know,
Chubb had a nice game, though. Thank God for Nick Chubb. 27 carries. That's real man carries for 92 yards. So good for him.
Good for him. But we know how it turned out. I don't know if everyone knows. I'll just I'll make the announcement in case someone happens to be watching YouTube that missed out on all of that controversy. I don't know how it could happen. But at the very end of the game, with under 10 seconds, a big fight broke out. The quarterback, what's his name again?
Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph. And
Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett, a defensive end for the Browns. Mason Rudolph, quarterback for the Steelers, got into it. And it resulted in Myles Garrett ripping the helmet off and trying to hit Mason Garrett over the head with it. Actually, he did hit him, but he hit it with the open area. And so Myles Garrett is going to be out the rest of this season pretty much. He just appealed through the union his sentence, his NFL sentence, and but I don't think the results have come in yet. Any last words? We're getting ready to look at the Lions at the Cowboys.
I have no last words. I'm ready to move on to the Lions and the Cowboys.
Bias plus score 11.2 favorite the Cowboys. And Dak got it done.
Boy, did he ever. Okay, so I picked Dallas. I got a win there. They did have the bias. So this was a game that they should have handled, and they handled it extremely well. Dak threw for a crazy 444 yards. Crazy. 3 touchdowns. No interceptions. Great job by Dak. Worked well in the pocket. Looked good. With Matt Stafford out, it's going to be tough for Detroit. They really don't have much of a running game either. They have backs that they can throw the ball to, but without Matt Stafford, they're not going anywhere. So,
all righty.
Much about them.
So the bias held on that one.
Yep.
Moving right along here. Next up, one of the teams that sort of is really looking like they want to do something. And the other one, we don't know what they want to do. The Jaguars don't know what they want to do. Nick Foles is back. Looked good coming out the gate through that touchdown, and that was it. And the Colts, they have Jacoby back. They were favored by a small 1.5 score on the Bias Plus last week.
Correct. And the Bias Plus was correct, and so was I. I took Indianapolis. 2 quarterbacks coming back off of injury. Foles, I thought, actually looked good considering he's coming back off injury and an injury that kept him out for almost the entire season. That being said, he threw for 300 yards, threw for 2 touchdowns, and he only got picked once. So he was pretty sharp. Did have a good number of incompletions. I don't remember any drop passes, but he kind of misfired a few times. But that's to be expected. You know, he only had like a week of real practice with the number 1 offense before going out there. Jacoby was, again, game manager, threw for 1 touchdown, ran for 1 touchdown. His numbers were low. They were efficient. They ran the ball well. Fantasy note, Marlon Mack has a fractured hand. I believe he just had surgery on his hand today. He will be out indefinitely. I hope that doesn't bleed over into the playoffs because I'm pretty sure, excuse me, Indianapolis is going to make the playoffs. However, Jonathan Williams steps up and on like 13 carries had 100-something yards. It was crazy. Now, let's not be fooled. Last week, Devontae Freeman for the Falcons went down, and Brian Hill came in and ran for some absurd number of yards. And then after that, the next week, which would have been this past weekend, stunk it up like he never played football before. So, but Jonathan Williams has been around. I didn't look him up, but I think he's been on a couple of other teams already. He has never, as far as I know, been a starter. He's always been a backup. So this could get a little tricky, or he could actually be the new bell cow for the Colts. And considering the Colts' offensive line, I would venture to think that he's going to do pretty well while Marlon Mack is out.
The offensive line got some love on media and TV. They were showing these guys, and I think they did the kegger at the end of the
yes, the keg stand
scenario. So that worked out really well. But they're very mobile. They're athletic. They get out and they move the pile, and they'll move it in whatever direction that you want it to be moved in. So trying to get my thing here. Okay, let's move right along. Let's see here. Next up, we have Bills at Dolphins. Favoring the Bills by its plus score of 20.5. And again, last week we were doing averages. So some of these numbers might be a little smaller than if you looked earlier in the season. And actually, they'll be smaller than what's coming up because this is the end of the week 12 ends the bye week. So all the numbers will be gross. We don't have to average anything out. 20.5 favoring the Bills.
Yeah, this one was easy. I really like the Bills. The question was if their offense could generate enough points to keep them in games because the defense was pretty much doing the job holding teams down. Their offense is getting better. Josh Allen at quarterback is doing a lot better. The running game has kind of shifted from Frank Gore over to David Singletary. But they're kind of the same guy. Singletary's younger. He's a little faster than Gore. But their run game is plodding, I guess is the best word to say it. But they do move the chains. I just like Josh Allen. I've had him on a couple of fantasy teams, and he's been holding it down for me. Obviously, they played the Dolphins. But he threw a very efficient 21 for 33, 256 yards, 3 touchdowns. And he ran for 1. So that's 4 touchdowns he accounted for. Now, again, yes, it was the Dolphins. But I really like the Bills. The Bills are going to be scary. And if the Patriots cannot sleep on the Bills, I'm telling you, they better not. They just I don't I like the Bills.
All right, you like the Bills. Let's move right along. Next up, the Broncos went up against the Vikings. Vikings were favorite, had a bias plus score of 11.1. Vikings, and that held also.
Yeah, that one was pretty easy too. Denver's got a good D, but the Vikings offense is really improving. Kirk Cousins broke the 300-yard mark again, threw for 3 scores. The funny thing is, somehow they fell behind 20-0 to Denver. I don't know what happened. I didn't watch the whole game. I was kind of watching 2 other games at the same time and trying to check on scores and stuff. But nonetheless, big plays by Stephon Diggs and Kyle Rudolph. Fantasy fans, always leave Kyle Rudolph on the waiver wire. Well, if you snatched him up about 3-4 weeks ago he's paid dividends for you at the tight end position. Yeah, good job by them. Dalvin Cook actually didn't do anything. So, again, the Denver defense is no slouch. They were able to slow down a guy that nobody else has been able to slow down. Unfortunately, Kirk Cousins made him pay.
All righty. So we held up on that one. Also, moving right along here, Saints at Bucks. Bias plus score 5.6 favored the Saints, and it held. What do you think?
Yeah, this one wasn't an easy win, but I did get the win. I called on the Saints. I'll be darned if I ever pick the Bucks over the Saints. It just doesn't seem right. It's a division game, and the Saints as a team are far better than the Bucks as a team. That's pretty much it. By the way, again, fantasy note, and it's not even really a note. If you're lucky enough to have Mike Thomas on your team, which I have him on some of my, secondary fantasy teams, but not on my main ones, I am severely jealous. Mike Thomas is a beast. He cannot be stopped, okay? And anybody that thinks Julio Jones is better than him, you better think again, because Julio Jones is not number one in my eyes anymore. Mike Thomas is the man.
So tell me how you really feel about Mike Thomas.
The Saints have a lot to talk about on offense. Drew Brees is starting to feel it. Kamara is still who he is, All
right, moving right along, we have the Jets at the Washington team that needs to change their name. TTN, TCTN. I guess the bias couldn't win here one way or the other. Unless they tied, we were going to be wrong. And so that probability, I actually calculated that against us. I could have calculated that for the bias plus, but I went with the negative on that. Who took care of that? The Jets.
Well, I I picked the Jets to win, and they did, so I took care of it.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I got that one. Sam Darnold looked like the Sam Darnold everybody's been waiting for and has seen glimpses of. 293 yards passing, that's pretty good. Now, yeah, I know, it was Washington. But Darnold looked good, threw for 4 touchdowns, only got picked once, didn't see any ghosts, so that was good for him. Meanwhile, Washington tried Dwayne Haskins back out there, and he pretty much looked like a college junior playing in the NFL.
He got his first touchdown passing, though.
Great.
Yeah, well, you always remember your first, man. Come on now. Jeez. I remember catching my first touchdown in the projects in North Philadelphia. Go Jackson Projects. Got my first touchdown on the big boys. I've been loving football ever since. People don't understand.
This was your first touchdown where the older guys let you play?
Absolutely.
There you go. Okay, that's big.
Yeah, yep.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, and probably that's why nobody stuck me. Nobody covered me. Let that guy go.
Yeah, let the young boy go.
But you never forget your first, man. So,
right.
But they're going with him the rest of the way.
They basically have to. They have to.
All right. Carolina favored by bias plus of 9, and the Falcons looked like they were pretty much on the ropes looking for a first-round draft pick. What the heck happened here?
It's funny.
Ha-ha funny? Or Twilight Zone funny?
No, it's not ha-ha funny. It's weird funny.
Twilight Zone funny.
Exactly. So the Falcons have 3 wins?
Somewhere in there. I can look them up real quick.
Those 3 wins are against teams that there's no way they should have won the game. This past one against Carolina, They beat the Eagles, and they beat the Saints. Like, what the heck is going on?
Well, when you look at the where they stand, okay, the Falcons are 19th in scoring at 22 points a game. So
And Ryan had a really good game.
That actually pushed them ahead of the Bills, the Chargers, the Giants, the Titans, the Steelers, Browns, Jaguars, a number of those teams, the Bears, okay, are in that group. And they're just below the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Colts, the Panthers, in that 22-point range. So they can put some points up. Now, if their defense shows up, that's a whole nother thing. Just going down the list here for Falcons, they're coming in at 26. So they're at 26.2 points a game. So you can see that they've been losing more than they've been winning, but they can score.
But again, that's the Twilight Zone part of it, I think, right there when you talk about the defense. If you rank 26 in points against, you're in the lower echelon. You're borderline bad, okay? But for some reason in those 3 wins, they stood up. And they got the wins. They kept McCaffrey pretty much under control in a game where I thought he was going to run wild. He still put up good fantasy numbers, but I thought he was going to, like, blow up the internet. And
right.
He didn't.
All right. Next up, what do we – oh, man. Look, let me tell you something. Did not expect the Ravens to do what they did. They were favored. They had a bias plus score of 7.2, not a big one, not one. It was like 3s in the 20s last week. So 3 bias pluses that were in the 20s in that area. Expected it to be a lot closer. Expected Deshaun to play a lot better. What happened there? What did you see?
I think when we talked about this game last week, and I did pick Baltimore to win, I think I said something along the lines of I trust the Ravens defense a little bit better than I trust the Texans defense. And I think you actually looked at the numbers after I said that, and it kind of bore itself out. That's exactly what happened. I believe my thought process was Deshaun can keep them in the game, considering their secondary is pretty weak, but he can keep them in the game if they're able to slow down the Ravens' run game. They were not able to slow down the Ravens' run game, which meant now not only can we pretty much do what we like to do anyway if you're a Raven, but we can also exploit them through the air when we want to, which completely keeps them off balance. There's nothing Deshaun could do about that. It was just too much. They were all over him. They rushed him hard. I can't remember how many sacks they had, but he was under duress the entire game. They had little to no run game. There was no balance. Once the score started going up, what are you going to do?
It was an interesting game. I think it was my intriguing game of the week. So that there is a blog at the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings on that game. And Deshaun is he's got to be able to get rid of the ball faster. I was accusing him of running. You straightened me out about that. He's trying to stay in that pocket, but that pocket is not popping for him right now. He's going to have to do a little running, and I understand that's what some of the media people are expecting in the upcoming week, which we'll talk about in the next segment, the Bias Plus report for Week 12. But right now, we're looking at Week 11, Cardinals at Niners, the Bias Plus. I talked about those 20-plus scores. Favored the Niners, but it was a little scarier than that.
Well, Kyler is scary. He threw for 2 touchdowns, and he ran for a touchdown, but his numbers were very, very low, which means there were a lot of bad passes. He just needs more help, man. And against a team like the Niners that have a solid defense that's just not going to let you really pick them apart and march up and down on the field, I mean, they did well to move the ball as they did, basically on his running ability at all. He ran for like almost 70 yards. He ran for 67 yards. So that's a fair day for a starting running back, let alone your quarterback. If you need that much from him, it's going to be tough for them to win games as it has been. The Niners are just far better than they are.
Well, it took Garoppolo to really put some good numbers together passing, and they did that, secondarily. But it's going to be interesting watching the development there in Arizona. Bengals at Raiders, bias plus score 11.4 favorite. The Raiders. And the Raiders came through for us.
I'm starting to really like the Raiders. They're fun to watch. Derek Carr is doing really well. I like the way Gruden's calling the game. I think some people were questioning him coming out of the TV booth and going back onto the field as to whether the game had possibly passed him by. But I tell you what, man, that guy's he's got quite an offensive mind on him. And he's not hurting them a bit. Okay, talk about efficiency. Derek Carr, 25 of 29 for 292 and a touchdown. He did get picked off once. I think he was under duress on one and just tossed up one that he shouldn't have. Other than that, the guy looked good. He looked really good. Cincinnati is who they are. Swiss cheese defense, can't stop a soul. Playing with a backup quarterback who actually doesn't stink. That kid, I think his name is Finley. Yeah, he's not terrible. I think Andy Dalton might be on his way out. Not because they just, not because he stinks, but because they can get something for him. And Finley might be able to hold down the fort, and they draft a quarterback early. There's a lot of good quarterbacks coming out of the draft this year. That seems to kind of be their plan. They were tanking for Tua, but now he got his hip busted up. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but there's a bunch of good quarterbacks that should be coming out. So I believe that's the plan.
The Raiders are 19th in net points at minus 25. So
not bad.
Still, that ain't great either. Minus, they're in that realm. However, when I look at them offensively, they are 18th. So that's again somewhere in the lower part of the middle of the pack. And defensively, the Raiders are 21st. So yeah, they got to pick up their game if they want to teams that are generally going to.
Yeah, but on the bright side for the Raiders, right now, all they care about is that division. And they're looking at San Diego. I keep calling them San Diego. They're looking at the Chargers, and they're looking at the Chiefs, and they're licking their chops. And I think they play them both down the stretch. So they can handle their business head-to-head and make the playoffs. And that's goal number one for them. So by any means necessary is what's going on for the Raiders right now.
Now, let me see something here. You mentioned the upcoming games. And what are we talking about? It's the Oakland Raiders, right? So
that is correct.
They're not in there. So, yeah, they got left on their schedule the Jets, the Chiefs, Titans, Jaguars, Chargers, and Broncos.
Exactly.
And they are all winnable games.
Exactly.
Maybe the only ones that you might question a little bit here relative to whether it's winnable for the Raiders.
Well,
they could find themselves in the top third if they get through that little section pretty nicely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Patriots at Eagles, bias plus score. That's one of those 20 area ones we talked about. 19.9 favorite the Patriots, and the bias held. Thank you, Mr. Eagles.
Yes, the bias held. I picked the Patriots to win. I hope that I wouldn't get too much blowback from Eagles fans, but they were pretty meek on this one. You know, they talk tough. Oh, well, you know, Brady's getting old, blah, blah, blah. We can win this game. It's at home, blah, blah, blah. They're just not good enough, man. The receiving core is decimated. It's Ertz, and that's it. Carson Wentz does not seem to be playing with confidence, which is also not a good thing for them team-wise. And the running game is still a shambles. They got a guy named Boston running the ball. Howard is hurt. They're still not using Sanders the way that they should, I believe. It's funny, when Sproles was the third down back, you could barely get the guy off the field. He was guaranteed to get X number of carries and or catches per series. And now you have a younger, taller, just as fast version of him, and you don't use it. So once again, you know, Deuce Staley is only killing himself as far as getting promoted to an offensive coordinator, if you ask me. But that's another conversation. Brady is struggling a little bit. If he can be had, if the Patriots can be had, this is the year that it can happen. Okay? People were predicting he was just going to fall off a cliff. He ain't falling off a cliff, but he got one foot kind of slipping. His numbers are not efficient, and they're not big numbers. And that's why I said, you know, although it's going to be tough to overtake them in the net points category because they're up so high, when we're talking about wins and losses, it's going to get a little shaky for them here at the end.
Well, they have another NFC East matchup coming up, and we're going to talk about that.
That'll help them. or maybe it won't. I'm not sure.
I'm wondering about that. We'll talk about that. Bears at Rams. Bias plus pretty small. Favorite the Rams. And Trubisky. Can I say my phrase?
Yep.
Trubisky'd it up.
Trubisky'd it up. There seems to be some controversy in Chicago. The starting quarterback got pulled. I think somewhere in the beginning of the middle of the third quarter. I forget exactly what, but it's the middle of the game. They showed him and the head coach having a bit of a real close conversation, hands on his shoulders, right up to his ear, so nobody else could hear what they were talking about before they had him sit down. Personally, I think Chase Daniels should have got a shot the week before, but somehow, some way, it got blamed on some mysterious injury. They got to be honest with themselves, man. Right now, this guy ain't getting it done. Now, I know you made the investment as the number one quarterback. You might want to hang on to him because of the investment. But if you want to win games, you do better to put Chase Daniel in there. You really would. That being said, I basically took the Rams mostly because I thought that their offense was efficient enough to keep the Chicago defense, which I think is still really good, at bay, simply because the Chicago offense would not score enough or would not be able to keep up in the scoring. I turned out to be right, but, I mean, neither one of these teams is anything to write home about. I'm sorry.
They're talking about Khalil Mack not having too good of a season.
Wait. Not having too good of a season as overall?
Yeah.
Well, he was playing like gangbusters the first 6, 7, 8 games. This is only game 12 coming up. Like, what happened?
Well, if that was the first 6, 7, 8, then the last 6, 7, 5, 6 might be what they're talking about.
I'll have to look at his numbers, but probably what's going on is if he hasn't gotten a sack or two per game, then they're looking at that as being bad. And
especially for him.
Yeah, especially for him. And also, unfortunately, they need that from him to be able to compete.
And then the other thing that I'm hearing, and we'll talk about this in the next portion of Week 12 on the Bias Plus report, they might be just looking to have Trubisky start taking off a little bit more. I mean, let's run some option or something like that. Because if you don't think he's your future, then you don't have to worry about risking him. You might as well go for broke and let him do what he's good at. You know, he can run. You know,
he can run. He can run.
Throwing the ball, and that might be at least that might help keep them in the running this season, or get them somewhere in the running relative to that. Because the Bears right now are 18th, so they're right above the Raiders at -5. So if the Raiders have a shot with -25 on the net points, Bears got a shot. But that's a tough division to have to be, knuckleheading it up.
Now that you mention that, they probably would do better if they ran an offense that was similar to the Buffalo Bills offense. Not put so much pressure on the quarterback to win games by throwing the ball. Let him become a part of the running game. Oh, yeah, that's actually a good idea. They got the same kind of players. Plotter at running back. One good long ball threat. The Bills, it's John Brown, and for the Bears, it's Allen Robinson. Yeah, very similar. Very similar.
Very interesting.
So you put that on the coach.
Coach, we've had some questions about the coach.
Yep.
We have.
Put that on the coach.
Speaking of putting it on the coach, we also put something on the coach with the Chargers. They were hosting the Chiefs. The Chiefs had a bias plus of 4. And we were talking about how Kyler Murray is protecting the ball. And now they're talking about how Phillip Rivers is turning the ball over. The old veteran who you expect to be efficient, decisive at the very least, is tossing the thing up, with his eyes closed or something. What's going on, man?
Okay, so I saw the game the week before. I didn't like the way the ball was coming out of his hands. The motion's always been funky, but he's always been an efficient quarterback. Smart, savvy, blah, 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 whatever you want to say. This year, not so much. But I picked the Chargers to win, thinking they're home. They're going to clean up some mistakes. The running game looks better. If the defense can just kind of keep the Chiefs kind of under control, everything will be fine. They look so good at times. And I don't want to say nothing bad about this particular coach because, or at least his offensive coordinator. I'm not sure if he calls the plays or not. I thought they had a really good mix of run and pass. Gordon's getting it done on the ground. Eckler gets it done on the ground and through the air, especially through the air, because you can line up Eckler anywhere you want. Henry's a good tight end. I think they should have gone to him a little bit more in this game. But the bottom line is they made too many mistakes. And when you make mistakes, you're going to lose games, especially if those mistakes turn into turnovers. And that's what's been happening to them. And I can't say anything else. I can't defend them. It's tough.
I want to share, Ben, and because we can kind of – no, I can't do this right now. We'll do this in a second. But I was just looking – Chargers, points per game, 21st in the league, just below the Bills, just one – basically 10th of a point above the Giants, 20.4.
Yeah, that should not be. That should not be. They should be far higher.
Now their defense is 11th. Okay, so right. They're trying to hold up their end under a lot of turnovers, and I'm going down the turnover scenario here. Oh, that's ridiculous. 28th. With -9 in turnover differential.
There's your answer. There's your answer right there. You cannot win ball games giving the ball to the other team. I don't care how good your defense is. You're not going to win ball games giving the ball to the other team. So their defense is playing under duress week after week after week. How long do you expect them to hold up?
And last week, what was my big comment about the Chargers? I questioned their commitment to the run.
Yes.
They really need to run the ball. Phillip Rivers is playing this bad. They really need to get that run established, whether it's Eckler or what's his other name? Why am I forgetting his name? You know what I'm talking about.
Gordon, Melvin Gordon.
Gordon, right, from Wisconsin, whether either one of them, and especially in third and, potentially 3-4 yards, something like that.
Yeah.
If you're on the other side of the field where you might go for it on fourth down if you can get, 4th and 1, fourth, whatever. I mean, they do need a little more, in their run game, just trying to run it up the middle or whatever, especially in those short goal line types of situations. So they need a little more creativity in their run game, but they definitely need to lean on that thing to help the Rivers out a little bit.
I agree they could use more creativity, but even the plays that they call, they've been fairly successful. They just need to do it more. They need to lean on it more because they're not going to have a good balance if those plays that Phillip Rivers used to make before on 3rd and 2, he can't make them anymore.
We're getting ready to wrap this section up. We just went through all of the games played last week, and this is most of the time I don't put the entire Sterling net point rankings up for everyone to see, but I wanted to make sure that I had it in a format that made sense and you could actually kind of look at it all together. And so here we are, everything we've been talking about relative to where these teams are falling relative to net points from the first, where the Patriots are in that strong first place, followed by the Ravens and the Niners, my beloved Niners, all the way to 32nd place on the right. You'll see the Dolphins at minus 166, which is why it's always a surprise when the Dolphins win. And you got to love it when they do. I mean, because those guys, just a season that they've had, the season under duress. You see the Bengals, you see the Washington team that needs to change their name all in triple-digit minus numbers. So that's the bottom of the bottom. But then you see where everybody else falls in. And what we always try to say, again, it's one thing when you're looking at matchups week to week, but when you're just trying to get an idea, who's your power players in the league? Who are those teams that are going to more than likely fall somewhere in that playoff hunt? That's the teams that are on your right, and more than likely you're talking about somewhere in the top 10 to 12. So that's pretty much an idea about who the power players in the league are. We're going to wrap up the review portion of the game. Ben, any last points you want to make about the review?
Just that I only had 3 losses, and only one of them was against the Bias Plus.
Oh, okay. All right. The Bias had 3 losses also. I calculated that out to a 78.5% win ratio. So that's pretty good for an unmanaged, unbiased, no conjecture, no opinion, straight numbers type ranking, which is the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus reports. That completes the review for Week 11. Next up, the Bias Plus report for upcoming Week 12. And I know for my Niners fan, it's starting to get a little scary this last piece.
Nah, you'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll be fine, so he says. All right. All right, so in this section, we are going to go through the Bias Plus report for Week 12 as I put the controller down and turn the volume down. What you see behind, I play the schedule of the Niners, and we had the Packers coming up. So we're going to talk about that. For some reason, trying to turn it down, and it's not turning down. It's not in the way, is it?
No, I can't even hear it. You're fine.
Okay. So yeah, I play the game, and again, some slight differences in personnel because within the franchise, what happens in real life doesn't necessarily get reflected. I have my own franchise, virtual injuries and such and such.
Oh yeah, right.
So that, but when you're playing Aaron Rodgers, you're playing Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk about the game and the outcome when we get to that particular matchup. Let's get ready to kick it off with the Bias Plus report. Texans at Colts, tonight's game. Bias Plus score of 4, a measly 4, favors the Colts tonight. What do you think?
Real quick, I'll tell you, I think the Colts are going to go in there and they're going to win that ball game. They're a better overall team. They got a pretty good defense. It's solid front seven, solid secondary. I know Deshaun can do damage through the air, but right now they have no balance. They basically have no run game. They're going to be hard pressed to win this one. I like the Colts.
The thing about this game is how close these two teams are. Colts ranked 12th in net points. Texans ranked 13th. And points for the Texans are actually 10th. Colts are 16th, but they're only a couple points off in points per game. Texans at 24.5, Colts at 22. And points against, Colts are 15th, Texans are 19th. So these are, on paper, in terms of what they've actually produced, two very close teams. You don't trust the one, but this should be a really good game. I'm kind of looking forward to this one.
Okay.
Okay. He says he's looking forward toward this one too, and that's tonight, Thursday night's game. And something, I did kind of come to a conclusion on these games. I really kind of like these Thursday night, Monday night, Sunday night games because it's the only game on, and I can just really focus in on a whole game. We both love Red Zone,
Yes.
We're Red Zone fans because it's hard to watch 14 to 16 games, all at one time, even if at some particular point only maybe 8 of them are on. Speaking of next week, after they end the bye, you're going to have like a different grouping of games because you have 16 games on the schedule. So,
right.
Yeah, so there's going to be some slight differences in the schedule. But for right now, let's look at the Buccaneers at the Falcons. Bias plus 4 favors the Buccaneers. And we already said the Falcons are kind of weird. They might,
Yeah, they're kind of weird. And that weirdness tells me that just like they beat the Saints and they beat the Eagles and they beat whoever the heck they beat the other day that they shouldn't have beat, they're going to lose to the Buccaneers. Matt Ryan's throwing the ball well, but his defense stinks. Jameis is throwing the ball well, but his defense stinks. This game might be 54-48, but I'm taking the Buccaneers to come in there and beat the Falcons on their own field.
And hopefully Jameis won't be turning the ball over.
He probably will. The difference is going to be that the Buccaneers defense is going to have to stand up for at least once and try not to let those turnovers turn into points, or at least hold them to field goals or something. I mean, these guys got to earn their money some kind of way. The Falcons defense has done it 3 times this year. So let's go.
So you're going with the bias on this one?
I'm going with the Bucs, yes.
Broncos at Bills. Bias plus score 68 favors the Bills.
Again, going with the bias again, and I'm going to go with the bias a lot. You see, we're getting late in the season, and we said this at the beginning of the season. In the beginning of the season, it's going to get a little wacky because teams haven't seen each other. We haven't figured out who the weak teams are and who the strong teams are and all that stuff. But things are starting to take shape now. So I am picking with the bias a lot more, even more than I like to. That being said, I have to take the Bills at home against the Broncos, a team that has trouble scoring against a Bills defense that doesn't give up a lot of points.
All right, there you go. Some interest in your New York Football Giants going into Chicago against the Bears with Trubisky questionable, with Daniel Jones looking good, except he's fumbling the ball a bit much, and hopefully he won't have Khalil Mack in his face, creating more turnovers since we're questioning Khalil Mack. But this is a pretty favorable, nice size bias. 97 favors the Bears.
Yeah, I would love to pick my Giants to win this game. In fact, if I needed another game to go against the bias, it would probably be this one. I'm really kicking this around right now in my head, but it's not really my head, it's my heart. I can't take the Giants in this game. I just can't. Their offensive line is leaky. And if Khalil Mack's having people talk bad about him, this would be a get-right game for him.
Not to mention Kwiatkowski.
Oh, God. I forgot about that guy. This will be a game where he'll get a lot of play and probably do something.
You think so?
Yeah. And strange as it may sound, Chase Daniels scares me.
Yeah, I think you definitely like Chase better than you like Trubisky.
I definitely like Chase better than Trubisky. I like Chase better than a couple other guys that we can mention. So, on top of the fact that the Giants secondary is just, oh my God, I have nightmares. The things I see them do and not do is just, it's horrifying. Oh my God, I can't wait for the season to end as far as the New York Giants are concerned, so we can start talking about who we're going to pick in the draft. This is crazy.
All
but
right.
Yeah, take the Bears.
Going with the bias on this one. Steelers at Bengals, bias plus score. Big one, 147. Favors the Steelers. Think the Bengals could become bias buster of the week? Is it possible?
If we have a bias buster of the week, this will probably be it. This is the Bengals. This is most likely, I don't know. I'm not going to say that because I haven't looked at the rest of their schedule yet, but this is close to probably the best chance they have of winning a game. They're home. The Steelers are reeling after that debacle from last week against Cleveland. Again, division game. This is the Bengals Super Bowl right here. This is their Super Bowl. I mean, obviously, well, I'm not going to say obviously. I got to be careful about the way I say things. These dudes are in full-fledged tank mode. You took a perfectly good starting quarterback who's young, really has no injuries, okay? What are you protecting him from? He was playing as well as he could with the weapons that he had, and you said, sit down, dude. Just sit down. You might accidentally win a game for us. That's how far in the tank mode they're in. So, no, I'm not picking them. I'm taking the Steelers.
You think that they are better tankers than the Dolphins?
They're trying to be.
They're competing for tank mode.
I mean, but when you watch the Dolphins, they really look like they're trying to win.
They do.
Right. And I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Mixon gets put on the bench too, the starting running back.
Ooh, that would be.
Because he's ripped off a couple of good games.
Yeah.
They're still not winning, but they don't want to take any chances going down the stretch. They're in full tank mode. This is embarrassing. Like they might as well just go all the way, man.
And do it. We were talking about the Dolphins being in tank mode. They're going to go visit the Browns, who have a bias plus score favoring the Browns of 139. That's a pretty hefty bias plus score. And like we just said, they come to win. They're still trying to play.
Yeah, they're still trying to play, but they got to come up to Cleveland. It's going to be a little chilly. I'm looking for a big game from Odell Beckham.
Oh
I could
yeah.
use one. I could use one on my fantasy team. He has scratched the surface of having a really good game. Um, Jarvis Landry's a little dinged up, so I don't think he will be benched. I mean, I believe he'll be okay to play, but Odell should be the number one target in this game. So I'm looking for a good game from him. I don't think the Dolphins defense has anybody that can really hold him down. If they want to go through the air at these guys, they can. And Nick Chubb should have a big game also. So, yeah, that's a pretty easy pick to take the Browns on this one.
Panthers at Saints. Bias plus score of 76 favors the Saints. Kyle Allen was looking like the man. He was going to challenge Cam Newton for the job, and then last week happened.
Completely fell on his face. It's a wonder that McCaffrey was able to get the yards that he was able to get, considering he was the only thing they had going offensively. But that just goes to show what a great season he's having. Again, that being said, the Saints defense is going to handle Kyle Allen, and all they'll have to really deal with is McCaffrey. I expect them to possibly, how's the saying go? You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. That's the situation there. So if they can keep him off the scoreboard, the Saints should win this one in a pretty easy time of it.
Panthers defense is ranked 25th, giving up 25.7 points per game. They are sandwiched between the Jets and the. What the heck?
Yeah, and they were touted as a top flight, like top 10 defense at the beginning of the season, and they are nowhere close to that. They're a sieve. They're giving up running plays like crazy, and the secondary is trash. They are really I don't know. I haven't studied them to see if they had any big time injuries to any key folks, but I feel sorry for Kuechly because I know he's out there doing the best he can with what he's got, but they can't stop a soul. Saints, it's going to be Saints in a romp. I'm looking for big numbers from Kamara and from Thomas.
Did you say romp?
Romp.
He used the word romp.
Yes.
Okay. Jets at Raiders. Can the Raiders romp? They got a bias plus of 74 in their favor. And the Jets are going from the East Coast to the West, which is not as bad as going from the West to the East, right?
No, Jets are home.
Oh, do I have that backwards?
I don't know. It says, okay, something's.
Let me double check here.
On what I'm looking at, it says the Jets are home, and I think.
Yeah, it does say that, doesn't it? I have that on this sheet. We can double check the schedule just to make sure of how that goes, because you wouldn't want to be giving out really bad information. Just a little. No, I'm just joking. All right. Oakland at New York Jets.
There you go.
MetLife Stadium.
So you got West Coast going to East Coast in effect. You wouldn't happen to have the time of that game, would you?
That looks to be a 1 o'clock.
Okay, so that does not bode well for the Raiders. However, they are playing the Jets. So I expect this to be a tough game because the Jets are kind of smelling themselves right now. You know, Darnold had a couple of big games. He's throwing the ball really well. Le'Veon has yet to explode, but he's been, kind of okay. The Jets defense has been kind of turnover hungry lately. And the Raiders pose a threat, but it's a young threat. The Raiders have a lot of young players. I think the Jets feel like this is a pretty even matchup. However, what's the bias plus?
The bias plus on this is 74.
74, not a huge number, but I'm going to go with the Raiders. I think the Raiders are really believing in themselves. I think they're having a lot of fun. I think they love their coach, and I think they're playing really well right now on both sides of the ball, as opposed to the Jets, who don't look like they're having a lot of fun at all, who really are looking funny at their coach, not just because he's funny looking, but because they're not sure what the heck this guy is up to. They don't seem to be having fun at all, and they don't seem to be a close-knit, well-functioning organization. I'm going with the Raiders.
If we had a producer like in the background who could choose music out, as soon as you said "I'm a believer," the song popped in my head. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'd have had that playing in the background and everything else. Okay, so you're going with the bias on that one. Lions at the Washington team that needs to change their name. And the Lions are favored by 103, but their quarterback is out, right?
Well, Washington's quarterback is out too.
Washington got about 12 quarterbacks that are out at this particular point.
Exactly.
Oh, let me mention that someone said that Alex Smith is actually starting to train.
That's a good thing. I'm glad to hear that, because there was a lot of speculation that he may never play again.
Yeah, that was a nasty injury that he had, no doubt about it.
Right. Well, that's good. Our thoughts go out to him. I always liked Alex Smith, and hopefully he can come back and continue his career. But Haskins ain't gonna win no games for these cats. It's just not gonna happen.
So you're going with the bias.
Yes.
Going with the bias. All right, Mr. Dickerson. Yeah, I know this is a bit much, all of this going with the bias stuff. You might have an upset stomach at the end of the show here.
Well, I mean, it bothered me at first after I checked my picks and saw that they were going mostly with the bias, but I can live with it. These are good picks.
Well, how you like this one?
I believe they're good picks.
This is your division. Seahawks coming to Philadelphia, playing the Eagles. Favored by a bias plus score of 25. Not a huge bias plus, but the Seahawks are coming in. Now, this is all. I'm not going to say which one of these games yet is my intriguing game of the week, but I will tell you they're contenders, because there's 3 contenders, and this is one of them. So when I looked at it, Seahawks ranked 11th in net points, Eagles ranked 16th, but the Seahawks are plus 21, Eagles are plus 4. Points against, Seahawks 7th, Eagles are 14th. We're talking about rankings, but in actual points, Seahawks 27 and a half, Eagles 23, almost and a half, 0.4. Defensively, Seahawks coming in a little on the low side, 23rd, giving up 25 points a game. Eagles actually coming in a little bit better at 18, giving up 23 points a game. But that turnover differential, +6 for the Seahawks, -2 for the Eagles. And that Seahawks, the Eagles might not know what to do with their running backs, but I don't think that's a problem or going to be a problem for the Seahawks.
No, that you're exactly right. The Seahawks come in with a solid game plan, a solid mix of run and pass, a great scrambling quarterback who's extremely accurate and throws the deep ball really well. That's Russell Wilson. He's going to be extremely hard to contend with. The Eagles' offense is becoming, I can't even really say it's one-dimensional. What do they actually do well? You know what I mean? Except for that, they're scrappy and they depend on Wentz to just make things happen. Defensively, they have been playing better, but just when they're starting to get their secondary kind of together and being able to kind of deal with teams that have that one outstanding receiver, here comes the Seattle Seahawks with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. Boy, was I wrong about him. I got to give you credit, brother. I was wrong about him. And Josh Gordon.
That's the killer.
Who only catches first downs.
Was he 2 for 2 on first downs against my Niners? Oh man.
Oh, that was big. That was big.
I'm telling you.
That was big.
You know.
So yeah, Eagles fans, get there early, tailgate hard, baby, because you're gonna be crying in your beer after this one. You get to see Russell Wilson close up. I'm jealous of you for that.
And that's another quarterback that we haven't seen live that we probably should put on our bucket list.
I'll tell you the truth, man. Full disclosure, and people may or may not agree with me or think I'm bogus because of this, but I prefer to watch football on television. I really do.
It definitely has its advantage, and me being a comfort creature person, I like it to give me the big screen and all but to be able to say that these guys are historic.
Oh, yeah, sure, I get you.
Potential Hall of Famers here.
Yeah, I understand.
And so, you and I, we can say we saw Dr. J.
Right.
We saw Chocolate Thunder.
Right.
We saw Magic in his heyday.
Believe me, we were Sixers fans, big time. If we lived in San Francisco, you would have been at games already.
Oh, yeah.
If we lived in New York and people would go, oh, it's just Jersey, you can get up there. Okay. Yeah, I would have been to more games. That being said, don't give me that, oh, you live in Philadelphia, how can you be we can have that conversation another day. The bottom line is I prefer, not just for comfort, I prefer, and notice I didn't say I prefer to watch the games at home. I prefer to watch NFL football on television because I like all the extra stuff that you get. Yeah. Because all that stuff means something to me. And I don't get that. All you get at the game is the excitement and the live and the feeling of you know what I'm saying? You can catch the replays because they got the big screens. So that's not all there is to it. There's a lot more than that. But, whatever. Take the Seahawks.
And we love Red Zone.
I love Red Zone. I do.
No, there's no doubt about it. There's certain benefit there. Jaguars at Titans. Bias plus score 45 favors the Titans, who you've grown to love their uniforms, and you used to say you hated to watch them. They were so boring, but now you don't mind watching them. But would you rather watch Nick Foles? Is Nick Foles going to heat it up a little? He came out hot, threw his one touchdown, and that was pretty much it. Is Nick Foles going to do something for the Jaguars? Because, them guys, man, they're 23rd in net points. They're at minus 33, but maybe with both 4 or 5 games left, they might be able to do something in that division.
First of all, Nick Foles threw for 2 touchdowns. Let's get it right.
Oh, I thought he just threw for 1.
No, he threw 2. He threw both of them to the same guy. Okay. Now, if there's one problem the Titans have is teams with a fairly dynamic passing game give them problems. The problem with the Jaguars is they're going to have their hands full trying to handle Derrick Henry. But I had to go against the bias at least one time.
Oh, is this it?
So this is going to be it. I'm going to take the Jaguars. I'm going to take Nick Foles and his ability to throw the deep ball. And I'm going to hope that the Jaguars defense can just hold on. As long as they don't look like – have you seen the I think it's a Geico commercial where the guy's got – it's so easy. It's like having Jerome Bettis on your flag football team.
Oh, I hate that commercial. You know why I hate that commercial?
Why?
Because the guy that's hanging on him talking, I got your flag.
Right.
Where the hell you get that voice from? I hate that. Oh, that voice.
Dude, he's being dragged by Jerome Bettis.
He's speaking in 2 octaves higher. And the thing is, you and I have watched the championship of the flag versus the pros, the amateurs versus the pros.
Yes.
And pretty much everything Jerome Bettis did is not allowable in flag.
Yes, that's true. It's a commercial. But basically, as long as Derrick Henry doesn't do them boys dirty like that, You know what I mean. Then I think the Jaguars can pull this game out. So I'm going to go with the Jags.
As long as Derrick Henry doesn't have a flag that everyone's trying to grab hold to, then they might have a shot. Okay, well, we're going to see what happens because Derrick Henry ain't the bus, but he's a pretty big vehicle. I don't know what vehicle you would want to compare him to. But once he gets in motion, he's out. So, all right. Again, division game. This is another one of the nominees for intriguing game of the week for me. Cowboys, they're going to visit the Patriots. I got that right, didn't I?
Well, yeah, but it's not a division game.
No, it's division for your Giants.
Dude.
Okay, all right, I'll leave it alone.
You can stop saying that.
Well, okay, all right.
We have no chance. Division games for other teams in our division mean nothing to us. We're not going anywhere.
Well, I look at the division games, like even if I don't think that the Cardinals are going to be there in the hunt for the playoffs.
Right, but they're in the same division with your team.
Yeah. The Cowboys are the same division with your team, right?
Well, no, when you say division game, I think it's two teams in the same division.
Same division. So I'm confusing when I say that nomenclature.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that. In the same division with your Giants, I should say. But this is
don't even bother to say that.
This is actually an interconference game. The Patriots are favored big with a bias plus score of 109, but some very interesting correlations between the two teams. And the reason that this was a nominee for intriguing game of the week is I'm interested to see the coaching matchup here. You got one coach that's on the hot seat. You got the other coach, the GOAT now, who's coming in, and everybody's questioning his offense. Now, everybody acknowledges his defense. Net point-wise, Cowboys are 4, Patriots are 1. All right, so you can talk bad about the Patriots if you want to, but that's a 179 net points to the Cowboys 89. So that's a pretty strong showing. Points for the Cowboys are 4th. Patriots are 3rd. They're almost the same, 28.6 for the Cowboys, 28.7 for the Patriots. That's about as close as you can get there. And defensively, Cowboys are ranked 7th. Patriots are 1. So again, for Dak to come in and be able to do something with this defense, if he could do it, that means that contract is looking better and better. But if he comes in and gets schemed out by the Patriots, that it might that contract might go down a little bit. But the largest gap is actually a turnover differential. The Cowboys at -1, Patriots at +18. Again, holding that number 1 spot. So the Cowboys' work is set up for them, and they're going into New England.
Well, sir, I just said that the Jaguars were the only team I was taking that was going to go against the bias. And up to that point, I was telling the truth. I said I wasn't going to second guess myself and cross out something that I already wrote. But I told a lie. I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys to beat the New England Patriots in Foxborough Stadium. Now,
no.
Tell me this. Oh, no, never mind. I thought there was a Sunday night game, but I see Packers-Niners a Sunday night game. So this is a good game.
It's a 425 game.
This will be a really good game. It will be heavily watched. Even Red Zone is going to keep going back to this one to see what's going on, whether they're in the red zone or not.
There's only 2 4-o'clock games.
Okay, that's good. So if you're watching on Red Zone, you'll still get to see it a lot.
Yeah.
I believe that the Cowboys defense is good enough to, I don't want to say stymie, but kind of slug it out with a very limited, very undynamic Patriots offense. I believe that they're good enough. And if they can do that, I think that Dak and Zeke can pull this thing out. But Zeke has got to be successful running the ball. And it's not just on him, it's on the offensive line also. But if the Patriots are going to have a weakness on defense, that would be it, and that would be stopping the run. I'm not saying Zeke is going to run wild on them, but he's going to have to get enough positive yardage and be enough of a problem for them that they can ease things up when Dak needs to throw the ball or wants to throw the ball and keep him off balance. He's got all his receivers healthy, Amari Cooper, Gallup, Randall Cobb is starting to emerge coming out of the slot. So they can attack that secondary, which is strong for the Patriots, but they can attack it in all phases: short, long, running, throwing to the back out of the backfield. They got everything going for them offensively. The Cowboys do. So the defense has to stand up, keep Brady on his heels, keep them out of the end zone. Be better to keep him on the bench and have some long drives, and they can get this thing done, man. I'm taking the Cowboys. I'm taking them. I feel good. The more I talk about it, the better I feel.
Cowboys are number one in yards per game. Pats are 8th. They're number one in passing yards per game. And strangely enough, Lamar Jackson and Dak have the exact same completion percentage at 67%.
Now,
So,
I think that's more of a good thing for Lamar, because let's face it, as a pure passer, Dak is better. I guess I'll get backlash for that too. But Dak, if you're just talking about,
I don't think too many people would argue that too much. I mean,
yeah, if you're just talking about throwing the ball, Dak is better. He's more accurate. He can get the ball all over the field, throw all the routes. Lamar's still a little limited, I think. It's just that the plays they call for him and the passes they have him throw are safe passes that he does well. And that's smart coaching.
Smart coaching.
Yep.
All right. So you're going to need some smart coaching in this one, because the Packers are visiting the Niners, and the Niners have a bias plus of 91 in their favor. That's the game in the background that I'm playing there.
Now, did you win?
Yes.
Okay.
By a field goal.
By a field goal.
I won by a field goal.
So before I pick this game, so tell me this now. Every team that the 49ers have played in real life, you have played that game in Madden. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the 49ers' real record is what?
9-1.
And your record is what?
8-2.
Ah, okay. Did you lose to the team that they lost to in real life?
At least one game I did. And I think one game I did.
And then the other one, well, the other game they won. Yeah. So, okay.
So, yeah, I think I split. This particular game is really funny. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, right? So, and this is the game I mentioned to you that I changed playbooks. I went from playing with the Niner playbook to playing with the Ravens playbook.
Okay.
So a lot of runs, a lot of 2-3 tight end type formations, moving the different wideouts, there. Got some legitimate wideouts now. You don't like my wideouts, I know, but, kind of just like with you get them out of those formations where you just got the wideout there. And to be quite honest, Aaron was driving on me near the end of the game. I gave up two interceptions, but we forced 3. And
right.
The third one, when Aaron was driving, put the nail in the coffin for Green Bay. So again, it's my defense, if anything, that's going to really preserve this win and keep this thing going, just like in the virtual world. However, we struggle with running quarterbacks. It's being noted now. Kyler has given us a certain amount of trouble. We saw with Russell, when it breaks down. Aaron's not running as much as either one of those two guys, but if he takes off, and he will do it in a very timely manner, as Russell did,
that's true.
He put his team in position to do some damage. But as of right now, the bias goes with my beloved Niners.
And I also am picking your beloved Niners.
Oh, really, Raleigh?
Yes.
Okie dokie. All righty there. So, all right. But, I would not pick that one as my intriguing game of the week because I don't pick my Niners. They're always intriguing as far as I'm concerned, so it wouldn't work that way for me. The next game, however, is on the intriguing game candidate list. When you're looking at the Ravens and the Rams, and what made this intriguing to me is, first of all, there's a clash in styles.
Okay.
So there's two different styles there. There's also the Rams and the Ravens. This is an interconference game, so they don't get to see each other much. And then the Rams are in my Niner division, so I'm always keeping an eye on them. So we have a big game. The Niners have a big game against a talented team. We're talking about the Packers. The Rams have a big game against a talented team with the Ravens. They're going to be traveling to the West Coast, but that is that the Sunday night game? Monday night game, right?
That's Monday night, yes.
That's Monday night. So we'll get a chance to watch that in full on Monday night.
Well, first of all, it's Monday Night Football, so usually on Thursday nights and Monday nights, the teams come out with the color rush jerseys, I think. So I hope that the Rams don't come out in those all yellow things. I hate those. I just do. I hate those. I like to see something new. They need to come out with something that's a little more blue accent. But if the Ravens come out in the all black, I love those. So if they come out in the all black or the all purple, oh my God, those are awesome. Those are awesome. But other than that, there won't be any surprises here. The Ravens should handle them. It won't be a romp. It's going to be a tough game. The Rams got a lot of offense. It's not always successful, but I'm sure the head coach there will have some plans and some gimmicks and some schemes. And Gurley seems to be pretty healthy. Brandon Cook is coming back. Cooper Kupp is there. They're missing Robert Woods. He missed a game for fantasy note. He missed a game for personal reasons, and they haven't said exactly what it was except for that he's got some family issues. So hopefully he's able to work that out and get back in time to get a practice in maybe tomorrow or Saturday and prove himself ready to play. That being said, if all their offensive skill people are there and healthy and ready, then all Goff has to do is not screw it up. Okay. But their defense just ain't good enough. I mean, the Ravens' offense is pretty much going to render Jalen Ramsey useless. I mean, unless he's going to cover the tight end, because that's basically their number one receiver, and they got three of them. So there's only one Jalen Ramsey. Unless he's going to become a really good tackler, he's not going to have – you're not going to hear his name much in this game, I don't think.
Well, it's interesting to see with Aaron Donald in the middle how they handle the run game, especially if Lamar is running on the edges. Aaron Donald's one of those great disruptors. He can kind of screw things up a little bit for you. But the Ravens have that power run game. Ingram is getting it done big time, and so it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep that up. As I look at some of the numbers you're talking about, ranking net points, Ravens are second, Rams are eighth. They're 100 points apart, but they're both in the positive. Rams are number one in points for. Rams are 12th. And that's probably where we did not expect the Rams to be. We expected them to be top 10, or better.
Yeah, that's where we expected them to be, yes. They've been a bit disappointing.
Points against, Ravens are 6th with 20. Rams are 10th, basically with the same, 20. So I guess, between 6th and 10th, everybody's all crowded into those same numbers. So the defenses aren't far apart. Ravens are better in terms of turnover differential at +6. Rams are -3 turnover differential. So that's something to keep an eye on there in terms of turnovers. Cooper Kupp is back, right?
Yes. As
long as Cooper Kupp is there, they got at least a go-to guy for Goff. That's his man.
He's dangerous.
All right. Well, that wraps up the Bias Plus report for upcoming week 12. Before we move on to wrapping it up with commentary and social media rants, any last words on the Bias Plus report for week 12?
I feel better now that I went against the bias twice instead of just once. That's basically it, man. I feel good about my picks as I usually do. And even when I don't feel good about my picks, I usually say that I do. But this week, I really do.
Just being genuine, eh? Okay,
just trying to be genuine, baby.
Oh, man.
That's all.
You're a mess. All right. Next up, we're going to do some look at the social media and some commentary. Do you have a this week?
Oh, yeah. I mean, all we got to do is talk about Cat.
Well, let's go to Ben and Barry on Football on Facebook. Hey, it's like looking in the mirror. There we go. And we'll just scroll up. We talked about the massive fallout from the Thursday night football game with Myles Garrett, Pouncey, and Mason. He put out a statement. Basically, he took a little more responsibility for his part.
As he should have. As he should have. And he got fined, as he should have. Some people think he should have been suspended a game or two. Are we going to talk about this now? Because I've been talking about this all week long.
No, this is as we go through the social media, we can throw the commentary out because we want to keep it short, moving right along.
I got it.
Time.
Yeah.
So go ahead, say you.
Okay. Well, here's my thing. First of all, without going over the entire incident from start to finish, I think the situation between just those two players was this. I feel like Mason Rudolph felt that he was wronged. When he threw the ball, it was kind of a little sidearm thing. It kind of almost went right underneath of Myles Garrett's arm. I don't believe he knew that the ball was gone, okay? So he's coming in, and I'm going to wrap this guy up, and I'm going to sack him. The thing is, he didn't hit him tremendously hard. He kind of grabbed him as if he wasn't quite sure, but then twisted and took him down. When he took him down, Garrett fell to his back. Mason Rudolph was on top, and then Garrett rolled on top of him and laid there. Now, the late takedown, the rolling on top of him, those are now penalties. They might not have been penalties 4 or 5 years ago, but those are now penalties. The referee stood there and looked at it, did not throw a flag. So Mason Rudolph felt that he was wronged, and he's scrambling and struggling, trying to get up, probably to scream at the ref, and he's cussing Myles Garrett out for laying on him. In his flailing, he kicked Myles Garrett in an area that's very sensitive. So now,
I didn't see that.
Yes. Now, Myles Garrett feels like, dude, I'm just doing my job. I sacked you. There's no flag, so I didn't do anything wrong. Why are you kicking me in the nuggets?
Hey,
So now he's not getting them. Now he's like, yo, okay.
let me add some fuel to that fire. Miles apparently is saying that Mason threw a racial slur at him.
Okay, that see, there you go. Now I didn't know about that, but there you go. So now they're both incensed at each other over something that neither one of them was fully clear about, except for if there was a racial slur thrown. I'll be pretty clear about that. Okay, so Rudolph thinks that this guy's doing him dirty. Miles thinks this little knucklehead quarterback is doing me dirty. Okay, calling me out my name, kicking me in my nuts, smacking on my helmet like he's going to get my helmet off. Ha ha. Okay, so now they're both really angry at each other. Then they both made a mistake. Miles rips his helmet off, mistake number one. Dum Dum charges back at him again, mistake number one for him. Then he swings his helmet, hits him on the head. So he's got two mistakes. Mason's got one. He gets suspended. He gets fined. That's the end of that. You know who the guy that I'm most upset with out of all this? And it ain't Pouncey. It's, and I might be pronouncing his name wrong, Nguni.
Oh, the guy who ran up behind.
He runs up behind Mason Rudolph, knocks him to the ground, stands there and looks at him. And then another Steelers offensive lineman runs to his aid, confronts this guy, and he keeps his hands down and backs up. All of this while Pouncey is playing Pele with the boy's head. Okay? Then, that ain't the worst of it. Then he goes in the locker room, and when they put a microphone in front of his face, he's like, he's my brother. I'm coming to my brother's aid. I see guys jumping on him. I'm going to come in there, and I'm going to help him. I don't care what it is. I've been playing with him for 3-4 years now. We brothers in here. We take care of each other. That's what we do. Really? Really, bro? You flat lied to the. You think people didn't see what you did? Or even worse, what you didn't do? You didn't come to anybody's aid at all. There was two linemen on your board giving him the business, and you go after the smallest guy on the field, knock him down, and then back up as soon as somebody your size comes towards you. Dude, we don't cuss on here, so I'm done.
Yes, don't do that.
Okay,
all right. Well, let's get back to that. And now that you all right, here's some good news. Kyler Murray's jersey is in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
He went in.
What record did he break?
The rookie record for most consecutive passes without an interception.
Excellent.
So that's Kyler Murray. We like to give credit where credit is due. Let's move up a little bit. Here's the cap thing. Did you want to mention anything about this?
I'll keep this one short because I could go on and on about this one too, but I got to get to my flag football practice. I believe, and I sent you an article yesterday that said something about comparing the NFL's offer to give him this tryout as being a Trojan horse. Right now, I kind of believe that. I think that Kaepernick has some really good lawyers who took a look at that waiver that the NFL wanted him to sign, that they gave to them, stating this is a standard. We would give this to anybody type of waiver. And they found some language in there that is not in the standard waiver. It seems like the NFL was trying to put something over on them. They didn't like it. That on top of them springing this thing on them with short notice, not being flexible about when it was going to be, not allowing any media to be there, not allowing him to have a film crew there that he had to live with whatever the NFL film crew put out. All those things piled up on top of each other. I'm glad he moved to another location and didn't sign that waiver. I'm glad he did that. Now his own film crew film the workout so that he can make sure that nothing gets tampered with and nothing gets left out. The media was there to see it with their own eyes so they can report what they saw and how they feel about what they saw, and nobody can do anything about it. And now that the NFL made this offer, possibly to try to pull one over on him, what they did, in fact, was loosen the grip on the collusion that they already admitted to by paying him in the suit. Now the owners feel like, hey, if we want to bring him in, we can now. That's a big win for Kaepernick. To me, it's a win for Kaepernick.
Okay, all right. I don't particularly agree that he should have run his own, but I do think that there was plenty of reason to distrust the NFL. And I think that the distrust was mutual. And for the NFL to say there was a standard waiver when it wasn't a standard situation, so you would not use the waiver. I don't know whether or not, I don't see how, when you say a Trojan horse, it's like, what, you're going to come in here and we're going to do something to you. I think
we're going to offer you this workout. All you have to do is sign this waiver. But the waiver was inside the horse. The workout is the horse.
No, I understand that
he supposedly wanted.
But I mean, okay,
but
so
once he signed that waiver, they had power over him.
Power to do what?
Power to not allow him to be able to sue them in any way, shape, form, anything. He had no. Other players can sue the NFL for stuff if they want to. If they get themselves in a situation, they can do something about it. They were going to make it so he could not do anything, even if they went back and got on television and say, "Hi, I'm Roger Goodell, and I'm telling all the owners in the NFL, don't take this man on your team." And it wouldn't have been nothing he could do about it if he had signed that.
Well, okay, I understand your point.
Why would you put yourself in that position?
I don't necessarily think that they would have done that.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they would have done it or not. They would have been able to.
With 24 teams there, and he's already won his lawsuit. They've already been found guilty of collusion. I think that they went maybe overboard with their waiver, but I don't think. For example, he's not going to die. So if he had died, they would not have been liable. If he had injured himself, they would not have been liable. But it's a workout. He's going to go in there and throw some passes. People are going to see him. And so I don't think it would have been that bad. You had your opinion. I'm just saying. But I will say I have heard also that there's a potential for a second workout during Owners Week. So that's been reported also. So the drama is not over. The controversy is not completely died yet.
Is this second workout supposed to be sponsored by the NFL?
There's just a rumor about it. We'll have to see, but that was reported.
Well, guess what? Doesn't that seem fishy to you that they're trying so hard to be right with him?
Everything about this whole scenario was fishy. We already agreed. We agreed with that last week. So absolutely. The only difference in our choices, last week we both said he should go. This week he should have went. I think he should have went on. And and I'm glad that he didn't. And you're glad that he didn't.
That's right, because they tried to slide something in on him and his lawyers picked up on it. And when they went back to the NFL and said, "Hey, why is this in here? What's this got to do with anything?" They were like, "Well, I mean, it's our workout. That's the waiver. He can't participate in the workout if he doesn't sign the waiver." No, sir. No, sir. I'll have my own. I'm going to go to this high school field. Who's with me? The media went, and 8 teams still went. If no teams had showed up, then I would have said, ugh. But 8 teams took the trip and followed him an hour away to get a look at him.
That was more than an hour. That was more than an hour. But in any
That's
event,
even better.
Okay, so moving right along here, I did want to mention this. We always try to bring up some of the positive things that the NFL and players and coaches, et cetera, are involved with. And so this is one of the NFL 100 scenarios where they're having a contest where they want you to send your child. Matter of fact, your nephew. How old is your nephew now?
He's senior in high school.
He might be a little old to be considered a child. I don't know if they're going up there because they were looking for the little guys, but you never know. Send in their some video on them, and then they're going to bring them in. And if they win, they'll get tickets to the Super Bowl and a whole bunch of others.
Yeah, I think they were looking more like for like little league guys.
Okay. So that's kind of what's going on. We did want to share that on there. We also want to talk about our Twitter page, which you can find. Let me share it real quick right here at B&B on football. And you'll find most of the information and a lot of the things that we talked about here. And we try to share information. We haven't really talked much about 150th anniversary of college football.
Right.
But Barry Sanders here, this little video talks about how he modeled Tony Dorsett as a kid, which I just thought was very interesting. So yeah, when you get a chance, ladies and gentlemen, go to Twitter at B&B on football. We are also B&BOF on Instagram. And if you go to www.benandbarryonfootball.com, you will end up at YouTube at our YouTube channel. And please remember to click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell and all of those types of good things right there. So we kind of did the commentary. Ben had a chance to do a rant. Do you have anything else you want to mention?
No, go Noles.
Go Noles. That's about it. Ben and Barry wraps up. See you next week.
All right, let me change my shoes.